I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. I now call this meeting of the Brevard County Board of Zoning Adjustment to order. First bit of business, Mr. Bodie, would you read the
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, function of the Board of Zoning Adjustment? Thanks.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body established by the Board of County Commissioners under Chapter 62, Article 2, Division 4 of Brevard County Code. The Board of Adjustment is empowered to hear requests for variances to the zoning regulation and the sign regulation in Chapter 62, Article 6, and Article 9. Pursuant to Florida Rules of Appellate Procedure, any person or persons jointly or severally aggrieved by any decision of the Board of Adjustment may, within 30 days after the date the order is signed, apply to a court of competent jurisdiction for appropriate relief. Mr. Chairman, you have 5 items on your agenda today.
Thank you, Mr. Bodie. Mr. McCann, could you read the definition of an undue hardship?
An undue hardship. A variance may be granted when it will not be contrary to the public interest and where, owing to special conditions, a literal enforcement of the provisions of this chapter will result in unnecessary and undue hardship. The term undue hardship has a specific legal definition in this context and essentially means that without the requested variance, the applicant will have no reasonable use of the subject property under existing development regulations. Personal medical reasons shall not be considered as grounds for establishing undue hardship, sufficient to qualify an applicant for a variance. Economic reasons may be considered only in instances where the landowner cannot yield a reasonable use and/or a reasonable return under the existing land development regulations. The applicant must answer a variance hardship worksheet with 6 questions. The Board of Adjustments will discuss these questions today with each applicant who has requested a variance.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. I will now read the board procedures that we are going to follow today for these hearings. The Board of Zoning Adjustment, as a quasi-judicial board with members appointed by the Brevard County Board of Commissioners, will utilize Robert's Rules of Order to conduct its proceedings. The chair is asking all board members not to ask questions while the applicants are making their presentations. Once the applicants have completed their presentation, we will begin board questioning with the board member who represents the applicant's district. When concluded, questioning is open to the full board. The chair will recognize each board member in turn. Once all board members have completed their questioning, we will then open the floor to the audience, who may be here to speak concerning the applicant's application. Anyone from the audience wishing to speak will be given the opportunity to address the board once and only once. At the conclusion of public comment, the applicant will be given additional time for rebuttal, as well as to present their final comments. Once completed, no further comment will be heard from the applicant or the public. The action moves to this side of the bar. We will not use a timer for this meeting. Instead, we are asking each speaker to be concise in what they have to say. It is important that you stay on subject and avoid information that is not relevant. All persons speaking must provide their name and address for the public record. Those wishing not to verbally state their address may ask the clerk at the podium for an address card. Please fill out and return to the clerk. Are there any questions from the board regarding these procedures?
No.
Are there any questions regarding these procedures from the applicants? Are there any questions regarding these procedures from the audience? Seeing none, we will move to the next order of business, which is to approve last month's meeting minutes. Can I have a motion from one of the other members to approve the meeting minutes?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the meeting minutes and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. We will now proceed to hearings on the applications. Mr. Bodie, could we have the first applicant, please?
Yes. Item number 1, Eric M. Raven, request variance of Chapter 62, Article 6, Brevard County Code, Section 62-2123A, to permit a variance of 3 feet from the required 5-foot rear setback for a swimming pool in an RU-1-9 single-family residential zoning classification, and this is located at tax account number 2955931 in District 3.
Okay. Would the applicant please come forward? You need to get your name and address for the record.
Eric Raven, 96 Carmen Street, Melbourne Beach, Florida, 32951.
And I have lost, no, I haven't. I have your, and with you is,
Mike.
Michael Fitzgerald, 110 Kasiki Trail, Melbourne Beach, Florida, 32951. I'm a retired attorney, and Eric is my friend, and I'm helping him with this matter.
all right, you're here for moral support.
Yes.
Could you raise your right hand? I'll swear in the applicant. Do you swear that the testimony you're going to give today is the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Please, how can we help you?
Eric had a pool person come over his house because he wanted to put a pool in his house. When he got over there, the pool guy drew up all the plans and everything, and he was out of town, so he had a variance of 3 feet from a fence line. So they drew up the pool plans, and then he submitted it, and then the county came back and told him that he needed a 6-foot setback.
5.
A 5-foot setback. The lot is in a triangle, so when he had the company to come back out and look to do it within the variance of the 3-foot one, it got to the point of where it wouldn't even be reasonable for him aesthetically or the size of it to even put it in. So he came and he asked if he can go for a 3-foot setback. The 3-foot setback is behind a fence of his neighbors. The neighbor wouldn't even see it. And it's just because of the way the lot comes to a triangle, which makes it hard to put a pool in there. If he can't put a pool in there, then, the size that they wanted to put it in, he's not going to put it in. So that's why he came for the 3-foot variance, so he could put the pool in. Mr. Raven, is a lifelong resident of Brevard County. He also works here. He's a laborer. He's the guy who, when you have a leak in the middle of the night, he comes with his truck and his equipment, and he digs up your pipes, and he puts, he takes care of the leak. I'm just hoping that you will give him this variance, so like when he works in the sun and heat all day, he can go home to a nice pool. And I don't think he'll be doing anything to hurt the people around him. As a matter of fact, he will be the only one who will be adversely affected if he can't put a pool in. It won't bother his neighbors. So that's why we're here today.
The utility easement's all the way around the front of my house. So I live on a corner lot, and I work in the easements all the time because I do city water and sewer. So my whole backyard, there's no rear easement, there's no side easements, everything's all in the front.
It's a weird lot.
We have the application, which has the maps and your statements and stuff.
Mr. Chair, before we go any further, I just have a question for the applicant. Do you plan on putting a screen enclosure around this?
No.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead.
Apparently, it was a good answer.
I don't like them.
Your application arises in District 3, which is our chairman, Dale Rhodes's district. He's not here today, so as today's chairman, I'll pick this up and go forward with the questioning. And I've looked at the application. My only real question is, Do you have anything in writing from the neighbor across the fence, either against or concurring or acknowledging that you're about to do this, or
They're
that
in
you want to do
Indiana right
this?
now. I mean, I can talk to them as Tammy and Jim. And
Well, something in writing that can go in the record would have been good, but if you don't have it today, that's fine.
They live there in the summer in Indiana, Indiana in the summer, down here in the winter.
Okay. I'm going to open it up now. Any other board member have questions?
I just have one. You mentioned, the attorney mentioned that should your variance not be granted, or your variance request not be granted, then you wouldn't even put the pool in?
No, I just think it's so narrow back there that it just wouldn't look aesthetically right. I mean, it's just gonna look like a lap pool, basically.
Okay.
And, I mean, I don't know what the law is on the house and stuff. I mean, I could go 3/6 off the fence line and push it 6 inches closer to my house. I mean, I don't know, it's staying 5 feet off my house. I don't know if I can go 4 foot off my house, and then I could go 4 foot off the property line. I just want to keep those dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what the law is on how far I can be off my house either.
Thank you.
Just one question for you. The fence, what type of fence is it?
Just the wooden pressure-treated lap.
So it's not a chain link?
No chain.
How tall is it?
6 foot.
6 foot.
That was the only question I had.
Okay. As part of our procedures, we asked if there's anyone in the audience, so if you could just step aside for a moment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak for or against this application? Seeing none, you please return. Any last words before I ask you to take your seat?
No, sir.
Okay. Please take your seat.
Thank you.
All right, next, do we have, you guys are going to be busy today. Do we have a motion to approve or disapprove this application?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance request as depicted in the survey.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve and second. Is there any further board discussion on this?
Nope.
Hearing none, I will read through the obligatory 6 hardship questions. The board can authorize this as long as the following factors are satisfied. That special conditions and circumstances exist which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the applicable zoning classification. There are no special circumstances. This applies to any other lands in the area. That special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. Well, yes, they are going to result from the actions of the applicant who wishes to put the pool. That gaining the variance requested will not confer on the applicant a special privilege that is denied by the provisions of the chapter to other lands, building structures in the identical zoning classification. Anyone else has the right to come forward and request a variance on their property similar to this. That literal enforcement of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the identical zoning classification under the provisions of this chapter and will constitute unnecessary and undue hardship to the applicant. I always struggle with this one because the rights commonly enjoyed by the other people in the area are to meet the setbacks unless they get a variance. That the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. I believe it is the minimum. That the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this chapter, and that such variance shall not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. I believe the fence screening off from the neighbor avoids any injury to the neighboring party. With all that being spoken into the record, I will call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Your application passes 3-0. Okay, Mr. Bodie, can we have the next applicant?
The next application, 23V00014, Broderick Bolton. We'd like to ask the board to table this item to the August 16th BOA meeting. It has come to our knowledge that the property has been sold, and this will give the new owner time to come forward to rectify or apply for the variances herself.
Okay. Any questions or discussions on this? Otherwise, we just need a motion to table this till till a future meeting.
So moved.
Yeah, 2 months, August 14th,
To a
August
few-
16th, I'm
Do-
sorry.
Does it have to be specific or just to a future
Yeah, I
meeting?
would do it as specific, but I think we're going to have to re-advertise anyways, but just in case if we don't, then we don't have to re-advertise if it's date specific,
So the date is August?
August 16th.
Okay. So the motion is to table this application until the August 16th Board of Zoning Adjustment meeting.
Correct.
Second.
I'm just reiterating for Mr. Thomas. Second, so the motion is made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion is approved. Moving on down the list, next application.
We're tabling that one too,
Depends.
Item number 3, Vivian Wasef, request variance to the minimum parcel size for an RVP, recreational vehicle park, zoning classification, and this is at tax account number 2426813 in District 2. This item we were requesting to be tabled to the July 19th BOA meeting at the request of the Merritt Island Redevelopment Agency.
Okay. Any board discussion? Well,
I'll make a motion.
okay. Mr. Thomas has made a motion to table this agenda item until the July
19th.
19th meeting.
Second.
The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? The motion passes.
Item number 4, Marilyn L. and Ronald W. Wetmore, trustees, request variance of Chapter 62, Article 6, Brevard County Code, Section 62-1334-5A, to permit a variance of 3.7 feet from the required 15-foot side north setback for an accessory structure in an AU agricultural residential zoning classification, and this is located at tax account number 2317058 in District 2.
Okay. This application arises in District 2. That would be Mr. McCann. Would the applicant please come forward to the microphone? Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Ron Wetmore, 5565 North Tropical Trail, Merritt Island, Florida.
Okay, swear you in. Do you swear that the testimony that you're about to give us is the truth?
I do.
Okay. How can we help you?
I wanted to build an additional accessory building on my property, so I sent a request into the building folks, and along with a survey sketched out where that building would be. And they identified that I had an issue that would prevent me from, said it would be okay to build the building there, but first I had to document an existing violation of a building that's already there and has in fact been there the entire time I've owned the property. So you can approve that variance so I can proceed with getting a permit for the other building I'd like to build.
Okay. Your application arises in District 2. That's Mr. McCann, and you have the floor for
Sure.
questions.
What is what's the structure that you're trying to get a variance for?
It's an accessory building on the tax record, it says unattached garage is what it calls it, but I keep equipment and materials in there.
And that existed before you purchased the property?
When I purchased the property, it was a working citrus grove. There was a shed there. That was an old tin shed with exactly the same footprint. In 1991, when we added on to our home, I had the contractor that was doing that also rebuild this building. So it's not exactly the same building that was there, but it's the same footprint on the same slab and stem wall.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
I have none.
I have none. So, just as procedural, no, any final words on this? Okay.
Nothing else.
Just as procedural, just need you to step aside. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor or against this application? Seeing none, you may go. Any concluding
None.
statement?
Thank you.
Okay, please take a seat. We need a motion to approve or disapprove. Mr. McCann?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance request as depicted in the survey.
And
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve this application. Any board discussion? All right. Seeing none, the next step is to read the 6 hardship variance criteria. That special conditions and circumstances exist which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the applicable zoning classification. Well, those, they do apply to other structures within the area. That the special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. Based on what I heard, he simply rebuilt on the existing slab that was there when he bought the property, and I wouldn't call that the result of his actions. That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by provisions of this chapter to other lands, buildings, or structures in the identical zoning classification. Doesn't confer on him any special privilege. That literal enforcement of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the identical zoning classification under the provisions of this chapter, and will constitute unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. I don't think that he's asking for something that's not commonly enjoyed by other properties in the area. That the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of land, building, or structures. He's simply trying to legitimize an existing condition, so that is the minimum variance. That the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this chapter, and that such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. It looks to me like he is well within his property, and nothing would it would be injurious to the neighbors nearby. So, having read the hardship criteria into the record, call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The application passes 3-0. Mr. Bodie, could we have our next applicant, please?
Yes, item number 5, Frontier Osceola LLC, request variance of signs in a BU2 zoning classification, application 23V000018, tax account number 2427799 in District 2. We're asking the board to table this item to the July 19th BOA meeting at the request of the Merritt Island Redevelopment Agency.
Okay. Based on the request from staff, do we have a motion to table this item to the July 19th meeting?
So moved.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to table this application till the July 19th meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0. Mr. Bodie, may we have the next applicant, please?
Yes, variance application 23V00020, JPJR Holdings LLC, request variance of Chapter 62, Article 9, Brevard County Code as follows. Variance number 1, Section 62-3316B4 to permit a variance of 8.3 feet from the required 15-foot front setback for a freestanding sign. Variance number 2, Section 62-3316B4 to permit a variance of 4 feet from the 8-foot clearance height for a sign located closer than 25 feet to the intersection of a driveway or a road in an IU light industrial zoning classification. And this is at tax account number 2609922 in District 4.
Okay. Would the applicant please come forward? Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Shannon Parker, and I am at 16 Adams Court, Satellite Beach, 32937.
Need to
Oh.
swear you in for, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give us is the truth?
Yes.
Okay. How can we help you?
Okay, so I represent the construction company. I have some pictures. I don't know, do you guys want to see these?
I think
or-
we have the application here. Are
Correct.
they in the application?
They are not in the application, no, sir.
Let's try and proceed without them, because
Okay.
once you give them to us, we have to get them to staff.
Okay, all right, not a problem. So on Industry Drive, it is a dead-end road. It's been a dead-end road for quite some time. The property in question, 5060, is the second to the last building on this road. And the road is in the middle, and then you have 25-foot ditch, and then you have their parking lot building, so that's their property. So it was my understanding when conversing with the building department that the right-of-way is actually at the curb. So the right-of-way is taking up the 25-foot ditch before you get to the road. So we were asking for a variance. It has a parking lot and it has a median in it that was initially built when the parking lot was originally paved. I guess code has changed since that point, and we would like a variance to put a sign in that particular median. When you come to where a stop sign should be at the edge of the property line, the median sits to the right when you're exiting. And then you still have 25 foot of driveway before you reach the road, the edge of the road. So I believe that that would give plenty of space for someone to stop yet again to look both ways. But there's really only one business functioning to the right for any oncoming traffic. That way that the sign may or may not interfere with. And then the sign is only 4 foot, the base of the sign only comes up 4 foot as opposed to 8 foot. The client felt that when we came back with the quote for an 8-foot sign, it was exponentially more than what they wanted to spend on it. But they would like to be able to advertise their business as they are towards the end of the dead-end road. And when you're coming into that business park, if people look down the road, there's no sign for them, so you can't really tell where they're at. They say clients have a hard time finding them.
Okay,
That's my conclusion.
that's your statement. Your application arises in District 4, which is Mr. Thomas's district. You have the floor for questions.
Thank you. Is there any objection from your neighbor to the south?
No. The neighbor to the south is actually the same owner of the business that my client currently resides in.
That was really the only question I had.
I was listening as you spoke and leafing through the documents at the same time, and You described this as a median, which threw me off. I was looking at the road and thinking it was a separated road with a median. That's okay. Now I'm seeing, so you're still wanting to put the sign on your property.
Correct.
You just want to put it closer to the curb
Yes.
or the edge of the pavement.
We would like to put it closer to the property line, which would be
Correct.
at the edge of the parking lot.
Yes.
Because that little median in the parking lot right there was set up for that originally. They just didn't put a sign in at that time that they paved.
Okay. And this sign is going to be on the part of the road that faces or is going to be on the side of the driveway that faces the dead end of the road.
Correct. It is a double-sided sign, so you can see from both ways, not that they really need anything from the dead end, but it will be perpendicular to the right-of-way.
Okay. Okay,
I do have one additional question.
sure.
The neighbor to the south, if it were to be a different owner, would it be, is there a place for them to put their sign? Based on when I'm looking at the picture, I'm not sure that if they wanted to put up a sign, is there a place for them to be able to do it?
You're talking the building that is to the south
Correct.
of 5060. They also have a parking lot with a median there, with a planter, I guess might be a better word,
Yeah.
a planter there for a sign.
So there is a place? Okay.
There is. And there's actually also the same layout for the property to the north.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Procedurally, there's nobody here. I would ask you to step aside and is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak in favor or against? No, there isn't. So, any other words? Okay,
Okay.
please take your seat.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Mr. Thomas, this is your district. Would you like to make a motion to approve or disapprove?
Sure, I'll move for approval as depicted on the site plan.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the application. Is there any board discussion? I will say that we've run into these kinds of things before, and with such a broad shoulder between the edge of pavement and the edge of their parking lot, it usually may not meet the prescription of the code, but it meets the intent of having enough sight line beyond the sign to be able to see oncoming traffic. So I'm inclined to approve it. All right, I will read the 6 hardship questions. The special circumstances and conditions exist which are not applicable to other lands, structures, or buildings in the applicable zoning classification. I think the special conditions of a very wide shoulder exist here, whether that's within other zoning classifications. Certainly within the area, it's good. That special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. Well, actually, they do, or their future planned actions. That granting the variance requested will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied by the provisions of this chapter or other lands, buildings, or structures in the identical zoning classifications. I think we're applying our judgment here equally to this and other properties in the area. The literal enforcement of the provisions of this chapter would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the identical zoning classification under the provisions of this chapter and will constitute unnecessary and undue hardship on the applicant. I think literal enforcement would not deprive them of rights commonly enjoyed. I'm not sure that would be a reasonable application. That the variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible the reasonable use of land, building, or structure. I'm sure she could the applicant could go with a lesser setback, but I think this is a reasonable, even if it's not the minimum. That the granting of the variance will be in harmony with the general intent and purpose of this chapter, and that such variance will not be injurious to the area involved or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. I think with the wide shoulder, we're not injurious to the public welfare, and I think it's in harmony with the general intent of the chapter to grant reasonable relief. So with that, I will call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes 3-0, and the application is approved. I believe that we are at the end of our agenda.
So, Mr. Chair, for item 7, we're going to do a workshop since there's quite a few of new members that are not here. Staff's decided to postpone that, and so we get a full complement of the new board members and provide them a little education on the responsibility of the Board of Adjustment.
Do you need a motion for that?
No, it wasn't
It's
advertised.
just a staff, okay. So noted. The Brevard County Board of Zoning Adjustment for the June 21st meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.